What do you think of this, Craig Kelly?
Well, Tom, it's going to rain again. It's just a matter of how long until it happens. But we've got to make sure in this space that both state and federal governments are working together. You can't leave all the hard work to the federal governments. Now, we've seen down in Victoria, their water minister say we're not going to build any more dams because she thinks she's been listening to the prophet Flannery and thinks the dams won't fill again. Up in Queensland, they've given handouts, but they've given handouts to public servants $200 million worth when they should have given that money to many of the regional and farming communities. So we're doing everything we can federally to get the countryside through this drought until it rains again.
On Victoria, Craig Kelly, what the minister said was there are no approved dams by the CSIRO. The good spots are taken. If you create more dams, they'll take water away from other areas. Are you saying she's wrong?
Absolutely. She's 100% wrong. She has also said...
Where's a dam site where that wouldn't happen?
Tom, she has also said that there's no point building these more dams because it's not going to rain like it has in the past. Now, if you look at the Bureau of Meteorology's rain chart for Victoria, it shows no trend whatsoever for the past 120 years. We will have floods again in Victoria. And if they enlarge the size of the existing dams that they have, if they look at areas where they can build new dams, they'll be able to harvest a lot of that water so they're in better place prepared for when the next drought occurs.
Where are you saying the new dam sites are? Because as I said, the minister said the CSIRO has not ticked off on any because dams aren't just simply, well, there's one, there'll be more water in it. She's saying it's a zero-sum game now in Victoria. Where's a site
Tom,
where
you
one
can
should
simply
be?
raise the height of existing dam walls. If there's no new locations for dams that are suitable, you simply make the existing dams that you have bigger. That's what we're looking at here in New South Wales with the Warragamba Dam. Now, surely you cannot tell me there is not a dam in Victoria that they cannot increase in size. But the excuse that they are giving for inaction on dams in Victoria is because they think the rains won't fall like they used to. And that is just complete and utter nonsense.
On that point, farmers groups that I've been speaking to say that is very much happening. There are parts of the country, including in WA in particular, where there are established trends and they're saying farmers will have to leave these areas. So what, are you saying that's just not going to happen full stop any future decades? Well,
Tom, if you look at the rainfall charts throughout Australia, with the exception of a very tiny area of southwest Western Australia, the rainfall throughout Australia has been nothing other than a land of droughts and flooding rains for the last 120 years. There is no trend.
Does that mean it'll be for the next 100?
Well, Tom, if you look at the last 120 years, you will know that we'll have complete fluctuations going forward.
Well, last 120 doesn't mean we'll get the same in the next 120. If we've had a degree of warming and it goes to 3, that's different.
Well, Tom, our leading scientist in this space, Professor Andy Pittman, AO, has clearly said, unambiguously, he said that there is no connection between climate change and droughts. He said there has been no drying trend over the last 120 years. Now, if there's no drying trend over the last...
I don't know. IPCC suggests that's otherwise.
Well, no, they don't.
There are going to be links between more severe droughts.
Well, that's a prediction.
So there's no link between more severe droughts and the IPCC.
Well, Tom,
you're talking about a prediction, I'm talking about another one.
He's our chief, one of our most highly respected climate scientists, and he has said there is no link between climate change and droughts. They are his exact words, and he actually preferenced them with, this may be not what you expect to hear, because he knew that many people have had a false impression through what the actual facts and the science is on this space.
Like, you mean...
We'll move on in a minute, Graham Perrott.
Well, you know, Craig's asking the farmers to ignore the facts on the ground that they're actually trying to
They're in significant drought at the moment. That's rubbish.
Craig's asking farmers in Victoria to ignore the CSIRO. I mean, this shows there are none so blind as those that will not see. Come on, Craig. I mean, surely we should listen to the actual farmers. Go out and talk to some real farmers out in the
I'm listening to our chief
go out and talk to some actual farmers out in Western Queensland and talk to the
Graham,
see what they say.
No one denies we're in one of the most significant droughts in our history now. But this drought will break, the rains will come again, and we need to be in a position where we've got dams ready
Craig Kelly,
to take that rainfall.
I haven't read what you're saying about this particular scientist. You're saying I'm listening to the scientists. The scientists also say we should take much more drastic action than we are on climate change to limit it to 1.5 degrees including if you want everyone to get there, that Australia should take more drastic action. And you don't agree with that, do you?
Well, there's nothing that we can do in Australia as long as places like China and India are building hundreds and hundreds of new coal-fired power stations. The idea that we can somehow do something in this nation to make it rain
no, we can be
more,
one part of it. We can be trying to make more commitments. We can be willing to go beyond our target with a lot of other countries in a similar size.
And do you really think...
And then you've got a third...
We should do our bit.
If you take every...
We should do our bit.
We are
Craig, if you take every country of Australia's size, you have a third of the world.
We are doing our bit. And we signed up to those Paris commitments and we are meeting those targets.
Up, Craig.
But the reality is, if you think that we here can do something in Australia by upping our targets or having this 45% economy-wide emissions target that Labor took the last election, if that's somehow going to make it rain more or affect droughts,
Craig,
you are living in
emissions are going
land.
up on your watch.
Oh, Graham, the reason emissions are going up is because we had those LNG plants come online and exporting those gas. Now, if you want to close those LNG plants down, Graham, and put thousands and thousands of people out of work,
Craig.
well, but that's why emissions are going
up. Government, you're in your seventh year of government, and you're saying that suddenly we're not responsible for the economy, we're not responsible for emissions, we're not responsible for wages policy, we're not responsible for anything. Why are you drawing a wage, Craig?
What I'm saying, Graham, is if you really think, right, if you really think that we can change the weather here in Australia, you are living in cloud cuckoo land. You really are, truly and honestly. And that was what Labor's policy, that's ridiculous 45% emissions reduction target. How much would that affect the weather by?
Talk about your policies for 5 seconds. Talk about what you're doing for 5 seconds. Don't make it about Labor. You're in your 7th year of government.
Policy.
Talk about your policies, your vision for the future of this nation.
I'm happy to talk about that if you'd let me speak. We have a Paris target that we have signed up to. That is a 26 to 28% reduction off 2005 levels to achieve by the year 2030, right? Now, that is on target.
Just on that one, Craig Kelly, let me talk about that policy, because last year in December, that target was effectively, by including Kyoto carryover, halved. Were we ever told why that happened?
Well, it's fair enough. You could use, if we've over-exceeded our emissions reductions in years past, it's only fair that you can count that going forward, because the target is a 2030 target. It's a cumulative emissions reduction. And, you know, whether we like it...
That's saying we're doing it because we can, in terms of the environmental aspect, because, you know, you can say that we did it and go back to the original origins of it, which go to do with land clearing and us having a more generous target than others, but...
OK, let's just say...
We're just doing it because we can,
we didn't take that carryover. What would be the difference in the drought or the global temperature if we didn't take that carryover? The answer is zero. It is absolutely zero. Our chief scientist has confirmed that. It is zero. The only thing is there'll be a lot more cost on this economy.
Why not do zero then?
And it would make it...
If we're completely irrelevant, why have a target at all that costs money? Scrap it all together.
Well, Tom, we have a target under the Paris. You could argue whether we should have it. We have it. We're on target to meet that.
If it's doing zero, should we just scrap it?
Well, no, Tom, no, it's not doing zero. We know that the Paris agreement that every nation has signed up to will actually achieve 1/20th, if the IPC models are correct, it will achieve 1/20th of 1 degree by the year 2100. So it will do something. It's 1/20th of 1 degree.
Yeah,
that's if every nation...
doing zero.
No, we're doing our part of that 1/20th of 1 degree reduction.
If we say go double, you say that does zero. So
correct.
Get rid of altogether, we still do zero.
No, what I'm saying is we are part of a global agreement as the Paris, which will reduce the temperature if the IPC models are correct. There's a huge if over that, but let's just put that aside. If those models are correct, the Paris Agreement up to 2030, if every nation meets their part, will save 1/20th of 1 degree. That is what the peer-reviewed science says. Now, if we try and up our target a little bit, well, you'll take a fraction of that 1/20th of 1 degree, which will be close to 0.000.
Yeah, but you know how these agreements work, Craig Kelly.
That's right.
Every country does that, and that's the point.
So
Australia's always going to be a small part of it, no matter what.
And that's
we're
a
small nation, very high emitting per capita, and we can also set an example. I mean, what if we just said We're not going to turn
We're one of the
World War II.
20th biggest economies in the world, Craig. Remember that.
We are. It's 1.3%, absolutely. It's a small proportion. And we are one of the biggest emitters of CO2 in the world because we don't have any nuclear power stations. I'm not sure what Graham's position of that is. We are a very large country and we have very large agricultural emissions as well. That is one of the reasons why we're one of the biggest emitters. And we've got that Paris target. It's 26 to 28%. We're on track to meet that. Now, if the Labor Party want to go and up that, explain to the Australian public, one, how much that will cost, and two, how that will affect droughts or floods or rain or affect the climate.
Craig, here's a tip. Try to have an answer that doesn't involve Labor. Try to involve the fact that you're a part of the government until the next election at the very least.
And we have
don't try and blame Labor for something.
I'm explaining
Is that an issue for Labor last election, Graham, because you took a policy that Bill Shorten never delved into explaining the cost, and whatever you do at the next election, you can frame it in a way that says that this matters and it might cost a bit of money, but have a figure rather than just having a response about importance.
Well, look, it is, and because we don't have the resources of government, we're not in our 7th years of having the environment data and all the levers of government that are available to Craig. So we can't actually go through and say this is how we would do it. But I do know this: under Labor, when we were last in government, emissions went down. Under Labor, we're actually able to insulate homes, we're able to change approaches to public transport, change approaches. Yes, Craig, that insulated over 1 million homes, and the benefits are still being.
If that's what you can come up with, the best thing about the Labor government, the pink bat scheme, Graham, I think you're in a bit of trouble.
Craig, there's a whole list of things. You do not listen to what's actually going out in the real world in terms of businesses and farmers and people, individuals are changing to reflect the real world that we're in, where we need to make changes. Otherwise, we're going to increase our temperature. We're already the driest continent. We've got incredible challenges ahead of us. Go up to the Darling Downs and talk to some real farmers about what's going on rather than sitting in a Sky studio all day long.
Let me agree with you on that point. Our farmers are suffering. This is why we've got to get behind them and support them. We've got to support them through that drought. That point I will agree with you on.
I'm going to have to end there, gentlemen. We had a few topics, the best laid plans of mice and men, I'm afraid, but we'll resume the discussion in a couple of weeks and perhaps get to them as well. Graham Perrett, Craig Kelly, thank you.